I'm Ginny Robertson, founder of the On Purpose Woman Global Community and founder and publisher of On Purpose Woman magazine. I'm here with Laura Di Franco to talk about her poem in the November-December issue of On Purpose Woman magazine. Laura, good morning.
Good morning. Happy to be here.
I'm happy to have you here. Thank you for doing this. I always love talking with you about your poetry, your writing, your work. What do you want our viewers to know about you?
Oh my gosh, what that's such a long story. Hey you guys, I love being here with Ginny and talking about poetry. I do a lot of things in the world. I'm the CEO of Brave Healer Productions. We are publishers for holistic health, wellness, and business professionals. We'll leave it at that short story for now.
Okay, and some will come out when we talk
Yeah.
during, it'll come out, I'm sure. So Laura, you'll submit articles, you'll submit poetry to the magazine. Sometimes, usually with your poetry, what happens is I see it somewhere on Facebook or in an email that you send out. I go, oh, may I use that for the next issue of On Purpose Woman? And so this particular one is called Sandcastles. And I want to have you read it a little bit later, but I'd love to talk with you first about, do you remember when you wrote your first poem and what it was about?
Like first ever.
First ever, like little
Whoa. I,
poetry.
I I wished I had brought that little journal down here into my office with me today, because yes, I think I was 15
Mhm.
and it was something about dragons. I'm not exactly sure. I'll have to come back and read that
Yeah,
poem
that'd be
sometime.
great.
Yeah. Yeah, and it was of course about boys. It was about, and what's so funny is the one that I'll read today is a bit of a love poem too. It's still
Uh-huh.
about boys.
Yeah,
That's kind of funny thinking about
that
that.
is funny. I love it. I love it.
Yeah, I journaled them, right? I don't
Mhm.
even know if I called them poems back then.
They were thoughts more than probably didn't really realize you were creating poetry at the time, maybe. Yeah.
Yep, exactly.
Well, I think I wrote one poem in my entire life, and I remember it because I was in the second grade. And I'm gonna give it to you because it's very quick, and it's why I probably never wrote poetry again. Fish, fish in a dish. I do wish you would come out. And let me remind you, Dr. Seuss was not in my world yet. So I wasn't. Okay, so fish, fish in a dish. I do wish you would come out. Gray fish, brown fish. Either one I do not care. But oh, 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 fish. You do remind me of a bear. A bear I do not care, but a fish I do not wish. So please, fish, please come out of your dish. Now, I don't know if I wrote
Ah,
that in school. I don't know if I wrote, and I don't know if it was critiqued by anyone, but I not the fact that I remember it, I think is pretty amazing. And I
yeah.
can tell you, I haven't written anything that rhymes since then.
Oh, wow. I mean, Dr. Seuss all the
I
way.
know, wasn't it? I was like, really,
Brilliant.
I don't even think Dr. Seuss books were in print yet, but I'm not sure. I didn't have any at that point in my life, I don't think. And I had a lot of books. So I'm thinking if they were out there, I probably would have gotten some, but yeah. So let's move on to the poetry piece. So you started early. And when you write poetry, and we can talk about this poem specifically, but what inspires you? I mean, you probably don't sit down to write a poem, right? Something comes in, or do you? Or does something come in and
What a great question. Sometimes now I sit with that intention, but most of the time, 99% of the time, I'm inspired by a message moving through me that
Mhm.
always begins with the first line or two. And it's like somebody else that, the universe is starting to write a poem. So I recognize a couple of ideas that then sound like the first couple lines of something. And then if I am ready and I can sit and capture it with my notebook, typically I'll just go ahead and go for it, and much more happens on the page, which always astounds me nowadays. Back when I started writing poetry, that was the initial connection. I was realizing something was moving through me, but something else that inspires this all the time, every day, is nature.
Mhm.
And so I can walk in the woods, and now I know to either bring my phone or a little writing notebook because there'll be always a couple of lines, right? And I'll have to like just, I'll record them or write them down. The sunrise, anything to do with nature, the birds. Yeah, big inspiration.
as you were talking, I was also reminded that we connected through one of your poems. Our very first connection was because I saw a poem. It must have been on Facebook that you had written, because I definitely was not on your email list yet because I didn't know you. And I reached out, and that's when we had the print magazine. And I reached out and said, introduced myself and said, may I use this in the magazine? And that just started this beautiful, how many years now, relationship. Probably, well, we haven't been in print for at least 7 years, oh, longer than that,
I
probably.
was gonna say 8 or not.
8 or 9
It's
at
a
least.
minute
Yeah,
now, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So it's just interesting how that you were touching people and didn't even know you were touching people probably at that point.
Well, that
Yeah.
was a turning point for me when you reached out. It meant a lot to me that somebody felt something from a poem, because I certainly feel a lot from the poems. And then I thought, all right, somebody else likes this, right? It was a kind of an external validation. And I think we're all after feeling that no matter what anyone else says. But if someone else says something like that, I don't know. I still need that once in a while. I think
Yeah.
everyone needs that a little bit.
Oh, I do too. We all want to be seen and know that what we're doing matters, I think, not just to ourselves, because it used to be more for me about, oh, they like me, or ooh, but in later years, it's been more about, oh, that impacted them.
Hmm.
That made a difference in their life. Okay, I can do this next thing now. Sometimes
Exactly.
it's like that. I did a talk yesterday at the local Center for Spiritual Living, and the woman who was introducing me was just going, oh, and she's this and she's this, and we love when she comes in. And I just kind of was looking kind of like pleasant, like, oh, surprise. And she goes, are you frowning about that? You got to take that in. I said, no, I'm loving it. But I realize, it's just that appreciation is just really does matter, I think. And that's why I love doing these writer chats, because it gives me a chance to come on after showcasing the writing, to come on and actually showcase the writer and have you talk about your deeper stuff here. So let's see. I want to go right into the poem then. Would you read the poem for us? And then tell us as much as you want about what inspired it after. It could be very personal. I don't know. So yeah, whenever you're ready.
Well, I've self-published 5 books of poetry, and the very last book that I published was a book of love poems. And the inspiration for that entire book was a particular individual. But when I wrote Sandcastles, it was after that. It was another love poem, but you guys will hear it first, so I don't want to spoil all of it. I'll read it, and then you can tell me a little bit, what you're wondering about.
Okay.
All right. You're 50, I thought. What do you want for the rest of your life? I asked. I'd love to be loved fully, to be the object of his desire, to know he sees the sunrise in me, to create bigger love together. So you must do that for yourself first, I thought. And she said, okay, but I could spend forever doing that. And I thought, and what's the fun in being alone when the world is one gigantic playground of souls waiting for you to ask them to meet you in the sandbox? And someone piped up. It's more about the power you wield when you are detached from the need. So just be love, be the object of your own desire. Trust you're enough. Pursue joy alone if you must. Put your hands in the sand, because when he spies the sandcastle you've made, he won't be able to help but come around a little closer to see. And you can say, I built this. Isn't it grand? There's room for 2. Want to play?
Oh,
That is the
it lands
poem.
beautifully when I read it, but when you say it, Laura, it takes on a whole different meaning. So this
Well,
was before the person that you wrote the whole book of poetry about?
this one came after. I
But was
write
it about
poems.
before? I mean, was it about
Oh,
yearning, or was it, I mean, is
um,
that person still around?
Yes,
Oh,
yes.
okay. Okay.
He is still around. And this, of course, if you can read in the lines that I'm talking to myself.
Yeah.
And this is about self-love. So it's a love poem about wanting love from someone else, but knowing I need to give it to myself first.
Yeah.
And so it was really a love poem to myself. It's like we all have patterns in relationships. And if you are waking up to some of your own patterns and aware of the places that you kind of fall into a little bit of a pit of neediness, needing that love from someone else. It's a needy sort of a little bit of a desperate ache in my heart
Mhm.
sometimes. And when I wake up in that feeling, that's where this poem came from. It's like, no, like, what if I gave that to myself? And that's where this one came from.
Wow. I love it when you describe it like that because I just had something like that happen to me yesterday that I was wanting something that didn't come, that nobody knew I wanted. It was two
Exactly.
different things yesterday, and one of them was just, oh, you look great, or oh, that talk you just did was wonderful, and I wanted them from my husband. I wanted him to
Mm.
tell me that. Now he said something on the way in the door about, oh, you look cool today. That's not what I wanted to hear. I wanted to hear something else, and so I felt let down, kind of. And so I was kind of going, I had to be present for my talk, obviously, but I'm going, what is it that I needed? Like, what is it? Why am I needing this outside of me right now? This is interesting because that doesn't happen to me very often. When it does, it means something's off, you know. And so I love that you talked about that again because it's like, yeah, okay. And I came home and I sequestered myself in my office and I listened to love songs, just and
Nice.
took care of myself a little bit. But yeah, and it doesn't matter how much work we've done, it shows up when it shows up. And you just talked beautifully about one of the things we can do about it when it does show up is to, ask, what can I give to myself right now, actually? And
And
then invite the person in.
yes, and I
You know,
am very interested in this awareness process because I know that if I can master this a little bit quicker and not dwell in that ache feeling, but go ahead and curate the other feeling inside of me, the love that I desire, that's manifesting energy. And this is where I think we go a little, we don't go wrong. This is the opportunity. This is the place. Like, that feeling. And we have to give ourselves permission to feel it, first of all.
good point.
But how long do we have to dwell there is my question.
Yeah.
And then what are you attracting more to yourself by dwelling there? So that's my challenge to myself. It's like,
Mhm.
can I wake up in this heartache? Can I do something different? Can I give that love to myself and bring the energy I want in right this second? I don't know, and I come from 30 years of devoting myself to holistic healing. So I know it's important to feel and give myself permission to feel all the things first. So I'm not trying to shove it down or ignore it or push it aside. I just am curious. So, get me talking about awareness and I'll keep going. That I think is going to be my next solo book, by the way.
Yeah. Such great points because what I also know for myself, and I think it's probably a universal thing, is that when I'm in that place and I stay past its expiration date or expiration time, nothing else happens. I
Yep.
just get more of this.
Yes.
I don't get inspired by anything. I don't feel love. I don't give love. So, and it can be a very, very instant fix if you're ready. If it's like, okay, I felt it. I think I'm ready to do something else right now. And it doesn't
Mm-hmm.
have to be that conscious. Sometimes we can just decide and go get up and take a walk, move your body, do something to get out of that space.
Yep.
So yeah, I love that. Love that so much. These poems, these poetry talks don't take as long as the article talks do because there's only so much we can say. But what else do you want to say about poetry or writing, or you can talk about your offerings now would be a good time to do that if you want, or just weave it all in together, whatever you want to talk about.
Well, so there's a poet in everybody, most likely. So if you're listening to us talk about poetry and you think, oh, poetry really isn't my jam. Well, what about your soul language? Is that your jam?
Mhm.
And what if that came through you and there were no rules about it and people are just calling some of this poetry? That's what I want you to hear. And this is really about connecting to it, something much higher than me. And I never, before about, I would say 2014, before then, I would have never used the word channel or channeling when describing myself.
Mhm.
I would have said something like, oh, that's what some of these other friends that I have can do. But I can't do it. I don't know. But then I had a moment on a plane with an entire poem moving through me. And that was the day I woke up to the fact that I actually managed to connect to something much bigger that wrote that poem, that moved that message through me. And I happened to be open enough to receive that day. What a gift that was. And now, several years later, I can say to you, I can sit and channel a poem anytime I want to now. I just have to make a decision to get into that connected space. So, whether you want to write a poem or write a book, or maybe even just come up with a creative business idea for yourself, and you would love that higher source to be co-creator with you, what if you quiet down and connect first, do a little bit of breath work, just get into your joy space? And that's how I do it.
Oh, I want to say so many things right now. I joined your writer circle, and I don't know if you've had a chance yet. I'm not going to put you on the spot, but I don't know if you had a chance to read the article that I wrote in the magazine this time. You are going to talk with me about it because I asked you if you would kind of interview me in a way because I wrote something and I want to do a writer's chat. But I wrote an article about something that happened in your writer's circle. It was the free one that you did to inspire people to find out more. And just a little bit about that. The first question, the first prompt was, what I love about writing is. And I'm sitting there, I don't know what I love about writing. I don't write that much, blah, 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 blah. And then I found myself thinking, why is it so challenging to find women to submit articles to On Purpose Woman magazine? Aren't there a lot of writers around? I mean, a lot of people are writers. And then all of a sudden I'm writing, what about me? Am I a writer? I don't think I'm a writer. And it was just this whole mess. And then the next prompt, or at least one of the prompts after that, was take what you wrote and turn it into a blog post or a business post or something. And I started writing, I'm not a writer. And I started writing all the reasons why I think I'm not. And then I went, oh, wow, I think I'm writing an article for On Purpose Woman magazine, because as you know, I rarely have an article in a magazine that I publish, which is kind of like bonkers, I have a lot of things to say. And this article, I just love how it turned out. And when I realized, and there's a little nugget in there about something, a piece of advice I gave to someone 25 years ago in a workshop I was leading that came back to me. That was the advice I needed to give myself in that moment of that writing. And so I'm excited about that. And the other thing is when you were talking about poetry, this talk that I wrote yesterday, or I wrote it for my talk yesterday. It's the Centers for Spiritual Living. They have places all over the country and in some other countries, and they send out a thing that tells you kind of like the topic, sort of, and all these resources you can use and these quotes and all this. And I look at it and my head explodes because it's just too much. But they know me. I'm a bit of a renegade when I talk, and so, but I did want to keep in this abundance kind of theme for the month. And so this question popped up that said, what comes first, abundance or gratitude? Because I'm asking, this just came in. What comes first, abundance or gratitude? I don't know. I think it's circular. And so as I started to write the talk around that, everything unfolded. But then as you're talking, I'm thinking that could be a poem depending on how I phrase it, space it, say it out loud. So pretty much a lot of things that I've written that I don't think are poetry can be poetry, just in a different sort of format or phrasing or something. So I'm going to try that because I think that would be fun to take something like that and distill it down into, yeah, what do you think?
I love that idea. And I mean, of course, listening to makes me smile because I think everyone's a writer. And I think
Yeah,
people are trying to move through, am I good enough to be a good writer, or is this perfect enough? And, you and I both know about perfectionism and, um,
just a little bit. Yeah.
yeah, what we're trying to move through there. But, there's people around you to help you publish a perfect piece, but moving it out first, getting it out in front of you on the page, that's an awareness process, first of all. So it's a brilliant thing. Moving that out is also a healing process because awareness is part of the healing game. Like there's so much to this. And I love listening to you about writing this article about not thinking you're a writer, but in the same way, fashioning an article for the magazine as you're talking about not being, it's just like so
Yeah,
brilliant.
bonkers. It's kind of fun. It's really fun
Yeah.
in retrospect to go, yeah. And as you know, I did join your writer's circle because I committed to having something in every issue of the magazine for at least this next year. That's 6 articles. That's not a big deal. In fact, I was
No,
looking at what I wrote yesterday for this talk, and I'm like, there's an article in there. That's definitely an article.
exactly.
And, well, something else just came across. What was it? Oh, some of the thoughts I was having sitting in the writer's circle is that everyone else there but me were writing, masterpieces. And then when some people started to share, I'm like, damn, did they just write? They didn't just write that. They had written that, because but people write differently. Some of it was so beautiful and so flowy and so flowering. And that's not my style. And so I realized I was comparing this to me again, and it just doesn't work. And then I do, some people did speak later about, or they put in the chat, I never write, I want to write. There were people of all levels there, but I was making up these stories about everybody but me knows what the heck they're doing, right? Do I really belong here? And
Yeah.
that was the question. And so it was really wonderful. And you jarred something loose in me. I also realized that I was much comfortable calling myself a published author than a writer.
Hmm.
And because I've been
Interesting.
in four or five collaborative type books, and yeah, but I had to write something to get in those books.
Hmm.
So it's just bonkers, the labels and all that stuff. So thank you for waking me up a little bit to something different and something new. And
Yes, of
something else just
course.
came in that I want to share real quick. I'm a new grandmother of a 4-month-old, first
Yeah.
time. And I am such a non, I mean, I have no idea what I'm doing with this baby because, hadn't changed a diaper in 40 years, hadn't held a baby much. We don't have babies around us. We don't have babies in our family. And someone said, my dear friend Andrea Highland said to me, you're just a beginner. And that's great. You're a beginner. And I realized the other day that I don't do a lot of things in my life that I'm not really good at.
Mm.
And I just realized too that writing is one of those things. And because I was kind of saying, what could I be doing that I'm not really good at? What am I missing out on? But I wasn't looking at writing as that thing, which it is, because I don't think I'm not great at it. I'm good enough. I mean, I've got all the other stuff going. I have grammar and punctuation skills. So I can at least write something that, I want the creativity to flow more. But so I am taking a step in that direction, but being around this little 4-month-old and being awkward as all get out. Unfortunately, they're trusting me to do some things, like change a diaper and feed him and stuff. But I realize how uncomfortable I am with being a beginner in anything. And that's just old stuff. That's just old, fearful stuff. And I'm ready to let go of that. So thank you for that opportunity to step outside and write.
Of course. Well, I mean, how cool is it also that writing could be one of those things, especially for a business owner? Business owners do need to write to communicate what they're up to in the world, and they need to practice and do it in a powerful way, or else they need to hire a copywriter.
Right.
But what if you could tell your own stories in a way that was so powerful to help people get to know, love, and trust you? I mean, that is what I hope to help all of my entrepreneur friends do better. And, we're all at different levels. Like you said, we're all practicing, and oh, that comparisonitis thing, holy moly, like, no, 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 no. But you've heard me say this before. However you write it is exactly the way someone else needs to read it.
Mhm.
And if you line up 10 people and they're all talking the same message, I'm going to need to hear it from your way. Your unique way that you put the words together will be the way that resonates with me. So that's why no matter how good you think you are at this writing game, you should practice what it means to express your own unique voice.
Yeah,
And that's very different for everybody. And it's so needed.
it is. It is. And the comparison thing too is there's usually no facts to back it up. There's just all a bunch of made up stories about where everybody else is, based on what
Yes.
they're showing right now, even, but I don't know how they struggled to write that. I don't know if they were in pain when they wrote that. I don't know anything.
Mm.
So it's just, and these things that I'm sort of going through recently are all things that I could be easily tell someone else what was going on, right? And then when it's me,
Mhm.
it's like, oh, isn't this interesting? Okay. Okay. So Laura, how can our viewers find out more about you and your work?
Well, come on over to bravehealer.com, you guys. We have a lot of different kinds of things going on in addition to that writer circle Ginny was talking about. What a great community if you want to dabble and play with writing. But we have one other project that's specifically related to writing, and it's going to be the expert collaboration called Writing. So if you make a living from writing in any aspect, you might want to find out more about the writing book that we're going to put together. But most everything is on bravehealer.com. You can find me on Facebook. You can connect with me on LinkedIn, and you can come chat with me about your book idea or ask me questions about writing. I would love to connect with you.
And how many books has Brave Healer Productions published at this
Oh my
point?
gosh. Someone asked me this on Friday and made me go count because you know how you're going to say the same number for two. So 88. And we are planning the 100 book party. It will happen in 2025. So stay tuned because it's going to be fun. We're going to do a party.
Yes. So if anyone watching this either has a book in you that you need some nudging on, some guidance on, talk to Laura, or if you've got a story in you that you would love to share in a group collaboration project with other amazing people who also have similar ideas. And all the topics are all so different and so and I will say that, check out the book that I was the lead author with Laura on Purpose Woman, the complete holistic guide for spiritual entrepreneurs. Thank you for pulling that up. Mine's buried
Yes.
on my desk right here. And you can go into Amazon and you can put in Brave Healer Productions because I tried that recently and everything pops up. So go try that. You can get the Kindle versions for not that much, or if you love to hold a book in your hand like I do, find that out. Well, Laura, what final thought would you like to leave us with today?
Well, maybe the same thing, a little bit differently said. Everything has been written, said, and done before, but not by you. So it is the way that only you can express it that might change or even save someone's life. It's time to be brave with your words.
Time to be brave with your words. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing your words, your wisdom, your energy, your success, and your friendship. I appreciate it so much.
Oh my gosh, I love you, Ginny. Thank you for having
I
me.
love you too. And thank you for watching the Real Women, Real Purpose talk show. For more information on the On Purpose Woman Global Community and magazine, click on the links in this video to go check us out. Also, be sure you check out Laura's website and any other of the links provided here. Also, go to Amazon and check out Brave Healer Productions and see all the 88 collaborative books that she has produced. And they don't get old because they're timeless and they make great, great holiday gifts. And for more interviews with amazing women living their lives on purpose, check out our YouTube channel, and that link is also in the text of this video. Thanks for watching, everyone.